Day Trading Radio presents a Briguy trading production.
Good evening, traders. This is Briguy on daytradingradio.com. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to see you all out there, and nice to see you showing up early and having a little fun in the chat room there, in the members chat room. And appreciate your attending our show tonight, and looking forward to your participation. As went out in the notice, what we're going to do tonight is take a look at the TradersExpo in New York City that ended tonight. And I'm just going to give you my own perspective on some of the vendors that I saw. And in particular, I'd like to share with you some of the information that I learned from attending some of the classes. I call them classes, but for the most part, they were infomercials for various products that people were trying to sell. But then again, that is what the trade show is for, right? So, not a big problem. I want to say good evening to the members that we have out there in the member room. Good evening to Kumar and to Die Laughing, and to your very interesting conversation you've been having over the last 15 minutes or so. And I want to say hi to our friends from Canada, like Fred 2000, good to see you. Jimbo, nice to see you in the room. And Chili G, also good to see you in the room. Had a nice chance to spend some time with Chili on Tuesday, and did a lot of running around with and without him in these classes. So, Chili, if in particular, if there's something that you'd like to share with us, let me know. If not, I know a lot of people don't like coming on the air. A little shy maybe, but Chili, if you want to show us to be the man that you are and call into Skype, then you could go ahead and do that. But if you don't want to, then that's fine too. I'm just teasing. And I think I covered everybody. Beauty Bubble also, good to see you in the room, and Rock Sterling. So just to recap some of the rules for the show. Is not too many rules. Just basically, my Skype handle, Briguy Trading, and you probably have to add me as a contact before you can call in, so go ahead and do that. And if you want to get my attention in the chat room, then just use my name. If you can hear a little ding in the background, I don't know if the mic's picking that up, but that's basically the alert from the chat room letting me know that someone's trying to get my attention. And that's a great way to do that. I have the slide up on the screen with an interesting quote that I wrote down from one of the classes. And that was a quote from J.P. Morgan. "I made all my money selling too soon." And you think that over, at first it seems, wait a minute, you sold too soon, so you could have made more money. But then again, if you sell too soon, then you didn't lose any money. So the bottom line is, you don't make any money until you close your positions, right? And of course I'm talking about profitable positions, but even the unprofitable ones, the idea would be to close those out before they ruin you. As traders, as novice traders, I should say, we tend to think that every trade must be a winner. And even when we're wrong, we sometimes feel like there's something we can do to that trade to correct the wrong and make it into a winning trade. So for example, we may think, I should just average down on my position. That'll be a way to fix my position, and then when it does come back up, I'll have twice as much money. And those are really the kind of attitudes that can ruin your account. Because for the times that works, it sometimes works by accident. But the odds are the probability is that it happens less frequently. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to sell too soon. Many times I watch some of the chats in the room, and some of the traders are asking about whether they should get out of a position, if the move is over, if there's more to go. And if you follow along with Day Trader Rockstar's trades, then you may find that he gets out of trades too soon. You may see another trader post in the room that they got another 10 cents out of it or 20 cents out of it, sometimes 50 cents out of it. Does that make one of Johnny's trades a bad trade? I wouldn't think so, because you don't make any money until you sell your position. So if someone decides that the move is enough and they take their profits, well, better to take your profits than to have it go against you and now you're left with nothing. Or you're left with a little bit less than what you could have had. And for all those times that it works out where you could have held on longer and made more, well, the probabilities will tell you that that happens less frequently than the opportunities to take your profits and focus your attention on the next trade. So that's just my little introductory spiel for you, checking back in the chat room. If you guys are tuning in to us now here on daytradingradio.com and you're not already a member, then I'm going to encourage you to do that, and you can join us in the member chat room during the day as we have our trading session live here from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. during the trading session, and we also have the after hours show. I'm being told by Calamity Jane that I must have Bocadude on the show. So I know I've seen Bocadude here and there, and appreciate you campaigning for him. But that's going to be up to Bocadude, won't it? But so we'll see if that happens. Like I said, if you went to the show and you'd like to chat with us about it, then feel free to do so. So I'll tell you about some of the booths that I went to, and I don't know if staring at this slide all day is going to be the way to do that. So I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll put the E-minis back on the screen, and I'll refocus the window so that J-Dub and his tiny little eyes can make out the screen. We can see that tight range being traded here. The high from yesterday at 29 still holding, and the volume basically non-existent, but trading in this tight range. So the Traders Expo, if you haven't been to the Traders Expo in New York, it's held at the Marriott Marquis Hotel, and it's really a beautiful hotel, at least from looking at it from the outside. Now, I don't know if anybody stayed at the hotel and has any thoughts on the rooms themselves. Of course, for those of us who are married, the room becomes very important. For many of us, the room becomes less important. But it was a beautiful hotel. If you get a chance to see, if you go to Johnny's, or I should say, if you go to Day Trading Radio's Facebook page, then you'll see some photos that DTR Brian posted of the preliminary meet and greet that we had at the Crossroads restaurant, which was on the 8th floor of the hotel. And it was a beautiful restaurant. They have a nice bar there, a very nice lounge area, and we had a chance to meet up with everyone there on Sunday evening before we headed over to O'Flaherty's. Now, when I got to the show and I got off the elevator, I checked in. Now, registration's free, so it's not a big deal to register ahead of time. It saves you from being online with a bunch of people and waiting to get up there just to get your ticket. But the other advantage of registration is that you get access to a lot of things online. Now, maybe I'll show you now what I mean about the things that are online. Or did I close that window? Oh, you know what? I had it and I thought I left it open. Give me 1 second and I will reopen that. Oh, this is the... So I'll tell you what, let me move this over to the other window and set it up so that we can watch the E-minis while we have this on the screen. So what happens is if you get yourself into the registration, and the show is sponsored by moneyshow.com, the Money Show Network. I'm not used to the website, so I'm trying to remember where to navigate to. Now here I am on the eShows link, and they have this register free and attend now link down here for those already registered for the New York Expo. So here's what happens when you register and then you accept the... this is why I didn't have it saved. I apologize. This Expo, for whatever reason, the software does not work with Chrome. I didn't try it with Firefox, but I will try it with Internet Explorer. So let me get this resized again. And we'll go back to that eShows page. Okay, so here's that link, attend now. And why not have a separate window? And this is what you see. So what I like about this is they made it to look like an actual event. Now, of course, we're looking at what appears to me as 1987 computer graphics, but I'm not sure who they paid to put this together. But it's cute, and you know, I don't want to turn this into an infomercial for all these companies, but they have all the booths here, just like they set it up so it's like a real booth. So if you want to go into one of the booths here, let me see if there's one. Okay, CBOE. So you click into that, and the video starts, which I'm going to just turn off for a moment, and hopefully you get the idea. So you got the information over here, a couple of videos it looks like they have set up that you can watch here in the center. There's a request information button on the left, and on the right they have some links about the company whose booth this is. And you know, I find it to be pretty clever to give you this virtual experience like you're at the show. Now, besides registering for the shows to go to the show, there's also a lot of online material that you can have access to, and that includes the webinars that took place at the show. And when I got the schedule, I went through it and I checked off some shows that I wanted to see, and some of the shows, as it turns out, were actually labeled as webinars. So in some cases, when I had more than one show that I was interested in, I decided to attend the one that was not a webinar with the intention to go back later and actually watch the webinar. So I'm looking forward to seeing if those webinars end up online. They're supposed to show up there after the show. I was talking with someone earlier today about the fact that I got an email saying the show was about to be or the online shows were going to be ended, but I've reread the email. It turns out those were the live events, and they do have a series of live events. So some of the some of the booths and whatnot that I attended. Now there was a nice booth, and by the way, I'm going to try not to turn this show into an infomercial for various companies. We don't have any kind of partnership with these companies, and I can't represent whether or not they're companies worthy of looking into further or not looking into further. So I'm just going to give you my opinion on a couple of things, but you're certainly welcome to do your own homework on that. And if you have your own opinion, you can share that with us, and I'll be happy to read it on the air if you don't want to call in about it. So the one company that I came across was Investors Business Daily. Now that's, of course, the IBD, and we're familiar with the IBD 50, for example, that they put out in their paper. And this is, as it says in the paper, it's a computer-generated watch list of the market's leading growth stocks. IBD combines earnings, sales, and other fundamental factors with strong stock price performance to create this weekly snapshot. So it's kind of nice having a little chart of each one of these stocks here, and the ES ticking up to a new high at 29.25. But other than that, it gives you a nice rundown. The number one stock on the list was 3D Systems. So it's not saying that this is a stock to buy or sell or anything like that, but it's definitely a market's leading growth stocks, as it were. So at the least, it gives you a chance to turn your attention to some stocks that you might want to. Of course, here at Day Trading Radio, we're talking about these stocks all the time anyway. We've got Mr. Land going in the background, reading off the news items and giving us the heads up on the price movers. So there's probably a little bit of an overlap on this. But what I did was took some time to go through the paper here, and I marked off some stocks I thought were setting up of interest. For example, Fleet Core Technologies, Foxtrot Lima Tango, was putting in an interesting candle on Friday. Then you've got Celgene, Charlie Echo Lima Golf, that I drew a trend line on from the April highs back to January, and it was creating, in the last few weeks at least, creating an interesting flag in there. Now, whether that's a bear flag or a pennant, I'm not exactly sure, but it's something that you might want to take a look at. And the charts, by the way, in the IBD are weekly charts, so sometimes that'll give you a different perspective on what's happening. Stars Liberty Cap, which is Sierra Tango Romeo Zulu Alpha. They are the TV channel Stars, and they put in a very interesting gravestone candle on the weeklies on last week. The thing, of course, is that the volume is very low, so whether that's a mover or not, I couldn't say, but you could take a look at it. Now, what I found interesting when I went to the counter was that they wanted to set up a discussion on how to use the paper. So if you find that that's something you're interested in, they'll actually schedule a time. Of course, the show's over, so you can't do it there, but they'll do something online with you and have you and go through the paper with you and make sure that you know what you're getting into. But that's a subscription service, and some of us old-timers might like to have our hands on a newspaper. Now, this would be the first class that I went to, but the next thing that I went to was a class on Forex. And this was put together with a couple of folks who were actually CNBC contributors. So, in a sense, I kind of got a little fooled by the advertisement, because the way the class was labeled was CNBC contributors give you the tips you need to succeed. So I'm thinking, oh, some of the people that are on CNBC all the time. Well, these guys are on CNBC, but they're on shows that I'm not watching on CNBC. So in that sense, I really didn't know who they were. The more they got to talking, the more I realized I had seen them here and there. But it was a Forex class, and Forex is not my forte. I'll be the first one to tell you that. And Learjet will be the second one to tell you that Forex is not my forte. But I know we've got Forex traders in the room. And I appreciate that that you guys talk it up. And we even have, of course, our own separate room, the Forex room. Now I'm starting to stumble on my words here a little bit because I'm looking over and I don't see any movement in the chat room. So I'm starting to wonder whether the chat room is working or you guys are just talking amongst yourselves. So if anybody can just confirm that they're in the chat room still, then I would appreciate that. So thank you. You guys can go back to drinking your wine. That's probably what you're doing. No problem. So Forex is something that we've had our Sunday evening shows with Athen, and I haven't seen all of the shows, but the shows that I have seen I find very fascinating. But it's a whole new environment to me. I'm trading options, I'm trading futures, but as far as the Forex systems go, I'm really a little bit out of my comfort zone. Now, I tend to think, and I might be wrong, but I tend to think that you can take a technical analysis view to any vehicle. And the more I hear from these guys in these different markets, the more I hear them talk about technicals. But many will also talk about the fundamentals. And in the case of the guys at this Forex class, is they also highlighted a third feature, which would be sentiment. So their argument was for Forex that you can't just use technicals. It has to be fundamentals, sentiment, and technicals all together. So I got some information from the woman giving the presentation, and I thought it might be nice for a future show, Tools of the Trade show, and talking about Forex, and we'll see how that plays out. But they went over the markets. So you have the Asian market trading from 6 o'clock Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. And that's mainly the Aussie, New Zealand, and Japanese currencies. So interesting. And then as far as news goes, they mention Australian news, New Zealand news, and Chinese data. So they kind of talked about the fact that Japanese data is not necessarily the mover for that market, but the Chinese data is. So I thought that was interesting. Then you have Europe open from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Now I say open. These are the times where I think they were saying that they mainly focused on these currencies, not necessarily that the market was open. So Europe, of course, would be the euro. Then you have the British pound, and you have CHF, which, again, since I'm not a Forex guy, I can't remember what CHF is. It's not Canadian. Not sure if it's Chinese. Might be Chinese. But at any rate, and then the news drivers for that market would be the Eurozone, UK data, and London Open opportunities. Then there is the U.S. market, which is 7 a.m. to noon. And that's where you get your various pairs. For example, Euro dollar, British pound dollar, dollar yen, and U.S. dollar Canadian dollar. And the news drivers for that market area is the U.S. data, the Fed's comments, and the U.S. stocks and the U.S. commodities. So, interesting side note is about the British pound. If you ever hear someone say sterling or British pound, they're talking about the English currency. They also, there's another word that's used, and that is cable. Now, I've seen Fowler make reference to cable. Does anybody know why the British pound US dollar pair, why that's considered cable? And thank you, McMill. CHF is the Swiss franc. That's why I couldn't figure out what it stood for. In fact, I'm going to write that down. So why is it called cable? Anybody know? Not to leave too much dead air silence while you guys are thinking it over. But does anybody know what is connected by cable between the United States and England? And Jimbo's got it. It's referring to the telephone cable under the ocean. And see, now you phrase it like that, and I can't even think of the right word. But it's a transatlantic cable line that was installed in the late 1800s, according to the guy. But I thought it was in the early 1900s. But at any rate, that is what cable refers to. So interestingly, back then, that's what that cable was used for. It was to trade the currencies between the two exchanges, and that's how the signals were transmitted. Imagine the types of trading we do today versus what they were able to do back then, first starting out. So, getting on to some of the things that they pointed out that you might find of interest is, let's talk about the Aussie. So I'm trying to remember my notes here, read my notes here while I'm remembering what they kind of mention. The Aussie will often reach highs and lows off of news. So they point out as an example, when Aussie retail sales came out, it would drop to the lows of the session on that news, but then within a few hours later, it gets right back up to where it was before. So that's just an interesting point about the Aussie trading. Another one was from September 5, 2012, when the Aussie unemployment misses huge. It made a huge dip, but then after that dip, it recovered in almost an hour, and then it climbed, rallying basically 100 pips. So we pointed out how the candles reached, the next hour candle reached the pre-news high. So that was a strong signal that things were going to continue. Now the reason was, and here's why, if you're getting into trading currencies, why you need to get your head wrapped around the way other let's use the word, oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank. It's not customs, but it's the way other communities, I'll think of it later, how other countries and other communities work in their own little ecosystem. So, for example, in Australia, culture is the word. I got every other C word out there, but culture. So, in the Australian unemployment number, it's a combination of full-time jobs and temporary workers. So what happens is, when the number comes out and it includes both those numbers together, it can seem really bad. But then later on, by the time that news is digested and somebody starts to read it and turns to page 2, they realize that the temporary workers are the ones that are out of work and not the full-time workers, the permanent workers, and therefore the market turns around and says, oh, this is not bad at all. So when you know something like that about the culture, about the market for the Australian currency, then you can trade around it. So I thought that was an interesting tip. The Aussie will often reach its highs of the session and lows of the session around the news cycles. So you guys can maybe make use of that. And I see some comments going in the room, and if you guys are commenting amongst yourselves, that's great. But if I'm missing something, please don't think I'm ignoring you. I just try not to interrupt you guys. When it comes to the cable market, so this is the British pounds, the cable will often reverse on a European move. So if you want to pull up your charts for August 31st, for example, and maybe we'll do that while we're showcasing this. That's what I thought you guys were doing. And let's see. It goes to show you I don't have any clue what I'm typing on these pairs here. I'll have to look it up the manual way. Let's go to FX and British pounds. GPB USD. Where is it? Here it is. And let's go with the daily chart. And that doesn't work. So let's go back to minute. I'll move over to my daily. Here's my daily. And this should have the crazy pivot points turned off so it doesn't look so crowded. So let's go back to August 31st, which is what they were talking about, which is here. And now I'm realizing I can't even look at it because it's the intraday is what we're supposed to be looking at. And so I'll tell you what, if I can get my software to cooperate, I will try using the on-demand feature in Thinkorswim. And we'll see if we can go back to that August 31st candle without too much hoopla, as it were. Here's the minute. And let me change the date to August 31st. And let's do 4 p.m., which is 1600. And see what we end up with. Okay, so here we are. If you're a Thinkorswim user or interested in Thinkorswim, you might find this interesting that you can do things like that. So here is the 11 o'clock high up here. Okay, this center candle that looks similar to a doji, almost a doji, is the 11 o'clock candle. So the point that was being made was that the there was a European move going on at the time. So I don't have the news headline that you was talking about, but so here you see the run up to 11 a.m. and then you see this drop off right back after the news came out, right back down again. So that was just something about the British market that they were mentioning. The other thing is the reversal that takes place after the 11:30. Oh no, it wasn't the 11:30. It's when the U.S. markets open and close. So, for example, on September 24th was the example there. So I'll bring that up. And let's take a look at the market open at 9:30. And here you see a lot of chop going around for a time. And here's about 8:30 here at this candle, forward to about 9:30, and you have a rally off a pivot up to the 200 period, back to the pivot, up to the 200, back to the pivot, broke through, established some lows on the day, etc., etc. And then let's look at 4 o'clock, which would be out here. And here's the rally into the close. And actually, since I ran this exactly to 4 o'clock, why don't we make that 17 and get 5 o'clock on the chart. Get the rest of that hour painted in there. So here's that run up and back down, 1600, market stops trading. So I think it was more the open that they were highlighting at this point. But anyway, the point I'm making is that if you're going to trade Forex, getting to know these nuances about the different markets can help you in your trading. Another thing they mentioned, and I didn't write down the dates for the example, but in Canada, they will often have a delayed reaction to their data. So they showed a couple examples where there was really bad data came out, and there's no movement on the currency until a half hour later. So you think you can get your positions in place by the time a half hour passes? I mean, it makes me wonder whether they really do have internet up in Canada. So let me see what else we have here. If you're going to trade Forex, you want to be aware of a few things like unscheduled data. So, for example, they could have comments from central bankers and fiscal authorities. She mentioned, I believe it was Mario Draghi at the G20 summit, and he's answering questions from the reporter. And just the fact that he took a breath before he gave comment was enough to make the markets realize something's going bad. Something's bad here. So he asked a question something like, so Mario, do you see us having to increase rates soon, or will the government continue the practices? And he got a reaction something like, well, let me just say blah, 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 blah. And, just the hesitation, just the head tilt to the side can be enough to change things. M&A activity is also unscheduled data. Upgrades and downgrades from ratings agencies, political flashpoints, environmental disasters. Now, these are things that affect any market, not just currency. But you want to be aware of that. And another thing I found interesting was that besides the VIX that we might look at for the market is something called the Commitment of Traders Report, the COT. And that's something that you can get for free from a few websites. So if you're going to trade Forex, you want to become familiar with those various things. And maybe we'll have some of those folks on another time and be able to share some more things with you. So let me get this back off on demand, and we'll put the ES back on the screen. And coincidentally, the British pound US dollar pair is trading up about 0.1% right now. So that could be interesting. In fact, I'm going to put our various 6 contracts up on the screen too. You guys can check that out. Gold up $3 and change. And let's see, the silver futures are up 11 cents. The copper futures are up almost 2 pennies. Oil is up 10 cents. So it just seems like there's no end to this bull market, huh? Just no stopping now. And the ES trading right at some continuing highs. And Fred's asking a question. What about trading gold? What about trading gold? There's a lot of talk lately about gold, and gold right now is just, I have to say, it's just not behaving the way it once did. And I don't believe GS would be the right symbol for gold. Let's try that again. If you look at gold on a daily chart, it's broken out of the trend line here. This was the trend line we had drawn in from the summertime, and we broke out of that trend line. So, right now we're in a downtrend. In fact, I should draw these in. And if we change that into a channel and bring it over like that, and give me 1 second to change, kind of moving the volume down to another screen, and you can see what's going on here. We're in this down channel. Here's your 1, 2, 3 points of contact on that channel, and it just doesn't look good. And sure, the stochastics continue to set up for a long-term oversold condition, but the buyers just haven't been stepping in. They just have not been stepping in. And even on a 60-minute chart, we've had the same basic scenario. And again, we're in this long downtrend, and we hit this low back here. This is on this chart a 20-day low, but I think it's more than 20-day low. And again, let me move the volume down to the bottom. Get that out of the way. But here, look at the 20-period moving average. This is again a 60-minute chart. It came up to the 50, but refused to cross it. If you were down here at the bottom, you said, "Oh, the stochastics, look, they're turning over." But it didn't happen. Sellers continued, and now in the sideways movement from the last couple of days, there's no telling what's going on. And if you watched the previous show on, when we had Kumar talking to us about volume profile, this is Thinkorswim's very unpretty volume profile, and you'll notice where we are. We're in a whole nother trading range here, a whole nother value area. Your values are out here. And if you want to put some lines on the top of this, then, look where this hits, right over to here. So, in fact, we can put that right in now. Call that 1618, 1619, somewhere in that range. You kind of have to trade up to that and see if it continues on through to the next value area. And here's where your moving averages are. So now, full disclosure, I have some GLD calls that I put on when we were down here, and they're just not moving. And I have some for March. I have some for the end of March quarterlies, and they're just not looking good right now. Just giving them a little bit more time. If they close out, or if I can get squeeze a little bit of less loss than what I have now, then that's what I'll do. So you get some commentary there from Epic in the room about the demand for gold dropping for the first time last year. And we'll see what happens. China is actually exceeding gold demand over India's gold demand. And India used to always take the lead with all of the festivals that they had. And China, some of it they're using for manufacturing, but whether or not they're hoarding the rest of it, who knows? But it's one of those watched pot never boils kind of situations, because the more people have been thinking, oh, it's time to get into gold, then you got just as many people taking advantage of that and saying it's time to sell and get out. So, buyer beware, basically. Actually, I have a friend of mine who likes to buy gold coins, and he actually sold his gold coins last year that he'd had since gold was trading in the 300s to 600s, in that range, and he banked a lot of money. Then he's asking me, well, hey, it's time to get back into gold. Well, why do you say that? Oh, because the guys called me up and they said it's time to buy some gold coins again. Well, those guys are trying to make money, so they're going to tell you it's time to buy gold all the time. But really, I just have to say, just be cautious. Yeah, that's just my opinion, and I see some of the commentary in the room, and very likely you guys have similar comments, similar thoughts. So getting back to the trading show, the TradersExpo. Let me put the ES back on the screen for you traders, you futures traders out there. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to put the futures news on the screen. I started adding that to my platform and found it to be very useful. What I'll do is, give me 1 second, I'll pull up a calendar here and see, just give you some heads up on any news that's coming out. Right now it's 10 minutes to 9 p.m. I should have mentioned it's Tuesday, February 19th, and right now it'd be 2000, and it looks like there's no more news set for today. And by today, it's saying the 20th. It's not today. Let's click on the 18th, the 19th. Here's the 19th. Okay, here we go. It didn't update for some reason. So the next news is at 23:30. All industries active index. This is for Japan. All industries active index month over month. The expected forecast is 1.6%. The previous reading was a minus 0.3%. There's also a tentative release of the Chinese FDI, which has not been scheduled. But just to give you an idea, here at 1930, back here, that was the last news. That was the Australian wage price index. Quarter over quarter came in at 0.8%, which was in line with the forecast, so no affection over here. So some of the various booths that were there, if you get a chance to go to one of these shows and you're using one of the major platforms, it's a great opportunity to talk to some of the gurus there. For example, I'm a Thinkorswim user, and I also use the mobile platform. And one of my biggest peeves right now is that on my mobile Android, there are times when the price, or the candlesticks I should say, don't line up with the price. It's like the whole thing, the whole chart has been slid down, fraction of an inch, a couple millimeters as it were, on the screen. And I was able to confirm that they are actually working on the fix for that. They have the code done, and it's actually going into testing right now. The guy had it up on his screen to show it to me, but the build won't be ready for a couple days. So hopefully within the next week or so, we'll see that come out. Then as far as the platform goes, there was a release over the weekend, and something very interesting that they came out with, which I haven't had a chance to review, but I'll be happy to show it to you guys as soon as I could figure out what screen it's on. And that has to do with the options. So let me bring up something like, let's bring up Herbalife. And figure out which tab they put this thing on. Here it is. Oh, and they want me to... I don't have any strategies going right now. Well, anyway, you know what? We'll show it another time. It's called a strategy roller. And what it's talking about is trading covered calls. So the way they have it set up is you can create or build your strategy for covered calls. You'll have your equity position, and you can designate which option contract that you are interested in. You can set some parameters. You can set some prices for the options, and then you can give it a time frame of when to roll that contract to the next month, and it'll then take care of it for you. It'll give you the covered call and either let it expire worthless or buy it back at a cheaper price, and at the right appropriate time purchase the next month's contract, or I should say sell the next month's contract, sell to open, of course, for a covered call. So I found that to be pretty fascinating. They had a little demo of it that he was showing when I got there, and it definitely seems worth looking into if that's what you like to do. As far as what is it called, on the platform it's called Strategy Roller, and I don't see a demo version here. I shouldn't say demo version. I don't see a example of it here. Let me see if I go to the Analyze tab. Yeah, it's not here, and I don't want to take up time while I'm trying to guess where it is. It's on the Monitor tab, the link for it anyway. And it's telling me that there are no eligible covered call positions on my account. So there you have it. I just gave it away. I don't have any equities right now, but that shouldn't surprise you since you know that I'm using options, trading options. So yes, Beauty Bubble. On the Monitor tab, it's called Strategy Roller. And I hope to talk to you more about that on another show. And maybe if it's something that one of the other traders here have used, they can show for us. In fact, I found here's the Learning Center's version of the information. So I don't know if this is zoomed in enough for you guys to see it. Let me see if I can do that here. But that's what it would look like. And what it lets you do is on the right you have the stock and you have your profile, which this kind of a bell curve profile is always available on the Analyze tab anyway. And on the left side you have the listing of your stock here, which if you can read it, it says buy 100 Apple shares, and then you're selling one Apple contract, one call. And here's where you set all your parameters. You've got a delta. You can set a minimum delta. You can set a specific strike. So you know the delta changes. You can choose that. It'll let you roll weeklies if they're available for the contract, or you can do monthlies. You can then set these options here for. I'll tell you what. Let me duplicate this tab. I'll bring it to another screen so I can read it better. Oh, they're both zooming in. I didn't realize it was going to do that on me. All right, let's put that back where it was. Let's see. Rolling strategies can now be created and maintained for positions of weekly options. Rolling strategy can also be created for a portion of a covered call position. Multiple different strategies can be placed on one overall position to allow you to diversify your direction. Now create a rolling strategy directly from the order confirmation dialog. This strategy will become active if and when the opening order fills, saves time, and provides an additional level of oversight by ensuring the call position will be rolled prior to its expiration. So for all I know, they actually had this already, but they just made some changes to it. But since I don't trade covered calls, I never really paid attention to it. There's a couple sliding scales over here, which lets you choose the price. So you can choose the order price at, in this example, 50% of the offer price. And then you have under active time of day. So in this range here, what they did was they didn't want any traders out there to say, oh, Thinkorswim has this covered calls thing going on, so every day at 10 o'clock is when all those trades hit, so they can manipulate the options price at 10 o'clock. Well, in here you get to set a time frame of when you want it to trade, and it'll submit it randomly during the day. So there won't be a way for the system, supposedly, to know when you're placing your covered call trade. And then I like down here in this area with this small text you probably can't see is an English explanation of what the trade is that you just put on. So like I'll zoom into that. I'll tell you what, instead of doing it that way, let me see if I can zoom in to the wording here. And here you can see what it says. This strategy will roll your -1 Apple 100 weeklies February 2, 13, 450 call to the February 13 call nearest to 0.4 delta, starting 2 trading days from expiration. A limit calendar diagonal order will be placed between 8:45 Central and 9 a.m. Central and canceled at 14:30 Central, priced at the mid price if the trade on the first day of the strategy and moving incrementally towards 50% between the mid and the natural on the final day of trading. If the rolling order has not filled at 1300 Central Time on the final day of trading, it will be replaced with a market order. So that is, the English explanation of that trade. So I found that to be a little interesting and worthy of further checking out. So if you're a covered call user and you're a Thinkorswim user, then you might want to look into that further. That's the Learning Center, gives all that information. Let me just, I'm going to bookmark this page here for future time. So that was Thinkorswim. Now, of course, they had the other big boys there. There was Fidelity, and there was TradeStation, Options Express, Scottrade, TD Warden. All these guys were there. So as I always say, if you're going to use a platform, and sure, I like Thinkorswim. Is it the best platform out there? I'm not going to answer it from that standpoint because I haven't used all the other platforms. But what I do know is that I've invested about 6 years of my life, well, not straight 6 years, but in the last 6 years I've been trading with this platform. And I've been learning a lot of its nuances. So for me to go out there and get another platform, it just doesn't seem worth it to me at this point, unless this platform completely blows up. Now, as I'm saying that out loud to you, something is jumping out at me that I did not even think about before. And I'm looking over the notes here of the list of vendors, and I'm going to tell you right now what it is. E-Trade was not at the expo. Now, I don't know what that means. Was E-Trade bought out before I realized it? I don't think so. But of all the big boys that are out there, E-Trade was not at the show. It could have been a conscious decision, a business decision. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't like to be in the same room with TD Ameritrade. I don't know. But that could be of interest. Let me check in with you guys again. We're getting some questions in the room here about my Skype handle. My Skype handle is Briguy Trading. It is not by BriguyTrading.com. That may be the name that you see when we're communicating with each other, but if you clicked on my profile and looked it up, you will see that it's just Briguy Trading. So if you're trying to find me, it's Briguy Trading. I don't know if are we setting me up for some phone calls here. What's my favorite drink? I do like a whiskey sour. In fact, I prefer a Maker's sour. So it sounds like you guys are setting somebody up to call into the show. So let me make sure my Skype is loaded to bear, and it looks like it is. And there is a request coming in now. Or at least I thought I saw one. Maybe not. Anyway, we'll leave that open. We'll see what happens. So I'm getting from an expert here being told that E-Trade does not do trade shows. So be it. Couldn't tell you why, but so be it. What I did find of interest was how many booths and shows or commentators there were that talked about your physical and your mental well-being. And we kind of talk about that in passing on the show. And Johnny even mentions it on occasion. We have, of course, High Tick Thursday, which we do for a little bit of entertainment, but in reality we also do to give ourselves some exercise. And we always talk about the importance of getting up and moving around and stretching those legs. On some of my Tools of the Trade shows, when we've talked about general subjects, I've mentioned the importance of eating right. It's not always a good idea to just get up and have yourself a cup of coffee and a bagel, but to actually have some protein, maybe some fruit. If you've got a certain kind of energy shake that you like, then that's fine. But there was actually a booth here talking about meditation and the importance of that. Now, I'm not a big believer in the types of meditation that you see at some of these events, because their types of meditation is to empty your mind completely, and I don't believe in that kind of meditation, so that's a personal preference. But I do agree that having some quiet time and having time by yourself in a quiet place where you can meditate on something in particular, whatever that may be, then that's a good thing. And I'm also a believer in working on our spiritual side and not just our physical side and our emotional side. But that's another show. But I do agree that there's a need to focus on those parts of our routine to make us better traders. So that was good to see. I did also attend a class for a fella who the name of his show was 7 Killer Trading Mistakes. Now, in his show, in the end of the show, I realized he pretty much just said everything that we've talked about many times. And if you've read any of the psychology books on trading, there are just some things from there that he's kind of rehashed. But they're valuable things to realize and to recognize. There were studies made, for example, he quoted a 1999 report, the Johnson report on day traders, analyzed 30 random accounts. Not sure why such a low sample. 70% lost their money. There were 8 profitable accounts, but those 8 profitable accounts had a very high risk of ruin. Only 3 accounts had a sound risk, 10%. So the conclusion being that 10% of the traders had sound risk management. And isn't that something that we talk about doing, but frequently we don't follow through in solid, sound risk management? Then there's the Dalbar study of mutual fund traders from 1994 to 2001. It found that investors gained 6% of the S&P gain. So if you would have just put your money in and left it alone, you could have made more money. But instead they only gained 6%. They gained 6% of the S&P's gain. Of these various investors, I didn't write down how many accounts they studied, but of those who were not advised on their funds, they were not advised, they had a 70.23% return. Those that were advised on their funds had a 90% rate of return. But if you, all right, so here's the point. So 90% had a rate of return. And the S&P, if you had left the money alone from 1994 to 2001, the S&P itself had a 293% rate of return. So this was, I wrote down investors gained 6% of the S&P's gain. So I think this is what we're saying. The S&P gained 293%, but the investors gained 6% of that number, which would be what? 246% of 293%. You know, you do the math, you figure it out. So, you know, he made some good points. Now, I'm being told that we have an expert coming online here, and I'm going to assume that he's got some valuable perspective on some of the things I was recently talking about. And so I'd be happy to accept that call if he'd like to call in now. That's up to him. But it seems like a campaign going on in the room, without me realizing it, that this is about to happen. So I realize there's a little bit of a delay from when I say that to you and you actually hear it. We see the ES trading at 28.75, and that call looks like it's coming in. And I think we're connected now. This is Briguy on daytradingradio.com. Welcome, caller.
Thank you very much, Briguy.
Okay, it sounds like Bocadude. How are you?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
Very good, very good. Let me just briefly turn on. Okay, I just want to turn on my feedback here. It sounds like you're coming through on the air. And I only caught some of the conversation in the chat room, but it seemed like there was some campaigning going on, that you had some perspective here on some of the points I was making, or maybe it's something about the trade show.
I have nothing about, I don't know anything about the perspectives or anything, but a number of people urged me to call into the show. So,
well, thank you for calling into the show. So I appreciate you doing that. Have you ever called into one of our shows before?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, I really feel special now. This is great. So I take it you are a popular member since we have such a campaign going on for you. So that must feel good.
Well, I highly doubt about being popular or anything, but here I am, and so I was egged on to call in, and so I have called in.
Okay, very good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been a member of Day Trading Radio?
Well, with Day Trading Radio, it's been on or off, but I would say for about, I think about a year and a half on or off.
Okay. And you sound like a well-seasoned trader. Is that a good assessment?
That would be a good assessment.
All right. Are you going to turn out to be one of these Wall Street titans that hides in the shadows of Florida's sun?
Actually, I don't hide under the shadows of the Florida sun, but I do try to find copious amounts of shade whenever I can.
Okay, fair enough. It's hard to do that on the golf course, though.
It is very hard, but I cannot remember the last time since I was on a golf course.
Oh boy, oh boy. Well, I can. It was August of 2011. No, just kidding.
Okay, that's cool.
I think it was 2010. But anyway, well, thanks for calling in. Is there something in particular the guys were trying to get you to talk about?
I really don't know. I guess let's just look at the room and see what someone wants to know, I guess.
Okay, well, they've really been interested in having you on the air. Why don't I ask you this? Is there something in particular that you specialize in as far as a vehicle to trade?
Well, in overall trading, I enjoy futures. I enjoy equities, more so on the equities for things that are speculative. I enjoy options, and I enjoy Forex.
Oh
So
boy.
I do the gamut.
So you're the one that checks off all those squares on those postcards when they come in.
Yes, I would say that's probably true. So it does keep one busy.
Okay. Do you find that having that broad range, does that help you with your trading, or do you find sometimes that there's an information overload of things that are going on at the same time?
Well, I mean, in the beginning, I would say you would probably consider information overload. However, as far as trying to figure out the best way to trade each of the different vehicles, it's something that you figure out over time. So, for instance, when it comes to Forex, I have a longer term horizon, which is typically about month to month. And so, you look at things not from a 5 minute chart, but you rather tend to look at Forex, or at least I look from Forex from a 1 day to 4 hour to a 1 hour chart. And then when it comes to equities, my horizon is a lot longer. However, if an opportunity presents itself for a scalp, I'll take it.
Do you find that using a weekly chart helps at all?
I find that using anything that is at your disposal at any particular moment in time is useful, because I think the one thing that we find as traders today is that we no longer make our trades based off of picking up a newspaper from the day prior. We now see everything in real time, and so we make decisions based on the information that is at hand.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I don't know if you heard my comments earlier about Investors Business Daily, which I find to be a very nice newspaper, but I couldn't help but mention to the woman at the counter that this is yesterday's news that I have in my hand here, and that when I'm trading in the morning, this is stale. I need something a little more current about what's going on, and I didn't feel like I was getting that point across to them, but they've got a newspaper to sell, so.
No, you are so right. It's the one thing with the news. I get I'm subscribed to the Wall Street Journal, like I assume that everyone else here does, and the Financial Times, but I hardly read it as far as making my decisions unless it's I'm relaxing, and at the end of the day, or maybe in the morning because I don't feel like trading, and reading up on news and information, because all the real-time news is already out there right now, today, happening. And so you might as well spend your time, if you're trading, on the news that's happening today, rather than, as you said, reading news a priori or after the fact.
Right. Now, how about your routine? What would you say is some tips that you might want to share with traders as far as either your daily routine, if you don't mind sharing that, or your weekly routine?
Well, it I would say on the daily routine, I do try my best to get to sleep as soon as I can. Typically, when I go to sleep, and my wife will attest to this, even though she is sleeping already, is starting. I guess you would say late night or early morning, depending upon where you are at the world.
Mm-hmm.
But doing a review of where all the markets are at, what is currently going on the economies around the world. So looking at Asia, and if I am awake enough, looking at what's going on in EMEA or Europe. So trying to figure out what is currently going on around the globe from an economic perspective. And then finally waking up in the morning and then reading, okay, what are the economic releases that are going to come out? How did Asia end up as far as the particular sectors that we're looking at? So where did Asia end up in telecommunications? Where did Asia end up with consumer goods, et cetera? The same thing as at the same time looking at where Europe is currently trading with all of the various different sectors, and then reviewing where the overall futures are trading at in relationship to how Asia and Europe traded overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the DX, looking at the dollar, looking at my favorite play in Forex, which is the NZD and the US dollar, which is the New Zealand versus the dollar. That's been my favorite Forex trade, seeing how we're doing on that.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at where we are with treasuries, looking at where we're at, well, with futures from the ES to the NQ, and then reading pertinent news in relationship to what's going on at that particular moment of time, along with reviewing equities as far as what I call my list to make a determination of where we may open or may not open, because I tend to do a lot of trading pre-market and aftermarket trades in the equities.
Okay. So that's a lot that you described there. Can I ask, since you've, I'm sure, refined your system, how much time are you spending in the morning evaluating all that information?
Whew. Well, I would say that when I wake up, and it really is dependent upon my wife's schedule because she still works in corporate America. But typically we wake up at about 6 o'clock to 6:15 in the morning. And then that's when I begin my day of reviewing everything. So I spend between 6 and about 9:30 to 10 reviewing everything, doing my analysis, figuring out how much I'm willing to risk for the day, and then executing the trades and standing by the trades with very tight stops.
Well, that's somebody else we have in the room, tight stops. I guess you've come across him as well at some point.
Not yet, but it's nice to know that there's someone else out there that likes to have tight stops.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So now you said that you're taking trades in the morning. So while you're doing all this research, you may on occasion put a trade on?
Yes. And so what I typically do is I concentrate on a very small pool. So an example on the futures, I will trade the CL, I'll trade the NQ and the ES. That's it for futures, period. And I won't do a combination of three. I will go into one of the three for the entire day. As far as equities, I have a small list of companies that I will play, and these are companies that I have played typically between 1992 and to date. And some of them have dropped off. Some of them are still the same. And that list consists of companies that have been around for a little bit of time.
Sure.
And so I tend to love Activision, which if you look at it from a channel perspective, it has a lot of nice opportunities. I enjoy Sprint from not typically a day-to-day trade, but from a month-to-month trade.
Okay.
And a few others. And then on top of that, I look at options trades, but I typically will concentrate on leaps. And I think I've said this before on some in some chat rooms because I am heavily on the call side for Sprint heavy.
Right.
Because I think that Sprint has some strong potential in the future, but you never know. So
when you get a leap on Sprint, are you going 2 years out, or just a year out, or 6 months?
So what I'm doing is I'm doing a year to 2 years out. So I'm playing right now the January 14 and January 15.
Okay. So if anybody wants to go look at the open interest on those right now, you can find out what he meant by heavily. just teasing. We did have a question come in the room about your options trading, and I don't know if you kind of gave the answer there, that you're doing leaps. So does that kind of rule out any shorter term trading or anything like calendar trades or covered call trades?
I mean, on that, I really haven't done anything shorter, and it's because, and it could be because I don't review stuff enough from an option perspective because I look at more of a longer term perspective. But I know there are some much better option traders out there, and I think one of them would probably be and I might be incorrect in my pronunciation, but Delilah, is that right?
I'm sure she goes by that as well, but yes, Die Laughing is...
Die Laughing, okay. Yeah, because I know, from some months ago, she is, from what I've been able to ascertain, is that, she's really good at options,
yes.
At least from what I've been able to ascertain. But if you're looking for the expert on the options, I am not the person. So,
well, you know what? I think we're all an expert in different things, and I think that's what makes the community work so well. Is we don't really have anybody that's like, if you want to know the answer, it's this one person for everything, because it just doesn't work that way. Everyone's got their own opinions and their own perspectives. In a way, we have our own little market system going on in that standpoint.
Yeah, but the whole beautiful thing about it is none of us are experts, because if any of us were experts, we would be able to predict where the market is going to go, regardless, right?
True. And when it comes to all the talking heads on television, they may call themselves experts, or that could be the intro. We're gonna go in now with the gold expert, so and so. And you're always shaking your head there. This guy knows half of what he's talking about. I've been a trader since 1999, and I can tell you, young man.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw Bogart. He just made a comment that Kramer knows everything about everything. And if I remember correctly, and I read Kramer's book from some time ago, but if I recall correctly, and please, room, correct me if I'm incorrect from my memory, is that Kramer's wife saved his fund he was running from total collapse some time ago. Am I wrong on this, guys?
Yeah, that I don't know. I know he's alluded to some things in one of his books. I don't know. Did he get into some trouble at some point?
Well, yes, and so as far as I remember, his wife went in one day, and she was able to do a couple of trades, and she right-sided everything.
Hmm.
So,
Well, Chief Greek is saying yes, you're correct on that one.
okay, I have not seen Chief Greek before, so that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
so I don't know. It's pretty cool. We're getting an answer. Or Chief Geek. I'm sorry, Chief Geek. Yeah, Chief Greek. I'm mixing you up with another options trader. And it seems like a little side debate going on about whether it's called leaps or leap. I have an
You know,
opinion about that.
on that, I would say it's called a leap.
Hmm.
As opposed to leaps. However, it's kind of a lot of things you hear is some people will refer to it as leaps and some people will refer to it as a leap. Um, but I guess it's kind of in anything else. Um, anyone will refer to it however they want to refer to it. So if you want to be right, from at least what I know in my small experience, it's a leap.
Okay. Now, of all the things that you mentioned that you trade, do you trade options on futures contracts?
No, I do not. And that's one thing I would love to learn.
Hmm.
Uh, and I have not taken the time to study. It's the same thing with doing options on Forex. I have not taken the time to look at or try to take the time to understand it to be able to do it. So I think like anything, you can't do everything. You can only do what you know, and then if there's anything else to learn, you slowly learn about how you can incorporate new things, right?
I agree with you.
Yep.
I think that's one of the things that scares some of our newer traders is they hear all of these different vehicles or strategies, methods, and they think they need to learn all of them. And they try to actually execute all of them at the same time. I heard one of the, it might have even been the one I was talking about a few minutes ago, the 7 killer trading mistakes. I think the fellow mentioned about how sometimes you start off as a trader and your screen looks like Japanese anime because you've turned on so many different studies and then they're all contradicting themselves. So you end up, you can't trade like that because you just got too many things going on at the same time.
Yep.
And so it's not until you start to refine your system and you start to back off on some of those things. And I know there's traders that don't use any indicators, although I would argue that the price level is an indicator. So in a sense, you're always using something. But at the same time, I can appreciate that they don't have moving averages on the screen and still be able to trade adequately. I mean, if you were a floor trader for many years, then you didn't have the luxury of moving averages to trade off of. You had to be able to process the highs and lows and the bids and the offers that are going on in order to ascertain the movement.
Yep.
Well, I mentioned the futures options, and maybe if you don't mind, I'll talk about it a little bit here. Is one of the fellows I met, and I'm interested enough to do it as its own separate show. I'll see if we can turn it into another show. But that is trading futures options. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, is this would be trading a contract, an options contract on a futures contract that is 9 months out. So I'm not talking, for example, on the ES, I'm not talking about an option on the March contract. This would be a strategy which gets into the leap mentality that you're describing, although technically 9 months out isn't what we would consider a leap. But that's the time horizon that he was focused on. He would not open a position. It has to be a minimum, he said, of 3 to 6 months away, the contract. And he gave some examples in the introduction here. So I'm not familiar with trading things like wheat and coffee and OJ, but let's say gold, which traded from 1800 to 1550 in however much time that was. What was that? 6 months? Maybe less than that? Right? So if you got an options contract, now that alone as a move is from 1800 to 1550. If you had a single futures contract, that's a $25,000 move.
Mm-hmm.
And so in trading an options contract, you think you can capture a good profit off of a $25,000 futures contract move? I mean, that's the concept on this. So wheat moved from 650 to 950 within a season, and that's a $15,000 move. And then it moved back off of that from 950 to 750. And these are things that you can focus on in a fundamental strategy, because we know that food prices are high, and we can speculate that they're going higher next year. He talked about the fact that we haven't had the rainfall that we've had in the past. We haven't had the snowfall to saturate the ground and keep the ground moist for the last 3 months or so. It's been a light winter. So the drought that was in the news last year has been kind of talked down with all of the other problems going on in the world, but the drought is still there, and the potential for this to have an effect next year is high.
You know, Bri, the one question I have, and I guess this is kind of for yourself and the rest of the population on the show, is, as far as the overall commodities, for corn, et cetera, when we're talking about what you're going for, how many people here subscribe to the Farmer's Almanac?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm being serious. It would be interesting to see what population of the user population uses it. Mm-hmm. It's always been one thing I've always been so curious about.
We're starting to get a couple of comments in the room saying that they do. And remember, we're not talking about the Stock Traders Almanac. This is the Farmer's Almanac.
Yes, the Farmer's Almanac.
And actually, the trader that gave the show, I'm sorry.
That was authored by Robert B. Thomas. Of course, he's dead, right? Mm-hmm. But
yeah, but it's been around a long time, and it was one of the resources that this teacher mentioned is having that almanac. He also mentioned some other. I don't remember if I wrote them down here, but he had some other resources in particular that identify these different trends.
Oh, that's cool.
But at any rate, I'll get into it another time, but I found it interesting. When you're trading the options, of course, you're trading leverage on leverage, because it's, the futures contract is leverage, and then your options contract on that is leverage. And his maximum risk that he was trading with is $1,500. So he's buying a contract that's 6 months out, an options contract that's 6 months out. I'll give you the rules right now, and not just for you, but for anybody listening. He's using a trend indicator, minimum of 3 to 6 months time, no more than 10% out of the money. By the way, we're talking a straight up call or put. We're not talking about... no, I take that back. These were spreads. These are spreads. Call spreads and put spreads. More than a 30 delta, that's 30%. A maximum $1,500 risk, and a 3-to-1 reward to risk minimum. So as an example he gave, and I of course haven't been able to backtest this yet, but I'm trusting the numbers he gave me. So he's saying in July of 2012, gold was trading at $1,580. So this is July. So what he did is he went out and bought the December 1625, 1675 call spread. That's a 50-point strike difference, 50 spread, and you're getting a risk of $1,600. Now, I know this is the one thing I thought was funny. I didn't get to ask him about. He's telling me $1,500 maximum, and then he ends up buying a $1,600 contract. But still, it depends on what you're doing, I guess. So he's risking $1,600 to make $5,000. That's what your maximum is. And in September, the 1700 was still the midpoint range. I kind of wrote that down, and I didn't really follow through on it. But anyway, we all know gold went past 1675 on up to 1800. And his point was, I'm not trying to hit the peak here. I'm not trying to pick what the top's going to be. But he picked something that was no more than 10% out of the money. So for 1580, that means $158 away, which would be 165. Did you just do the calculation on that? I got my calculator here. 1580. So it is 158. 1738. So no more than 10% out. So 1738 would have been 10% out. But he was able to find this spread within that. Now, I'm sure there's other rules, and that's part of subscribing to a service is where you're going to get all that. But his point was, here's a $1,600 call spread that at some point was worth pretty close to $5,000. You're not going to hold it till expiration all the time. There's going to be some rules. If he bought more than one contract, then he was able to peel half of it off at a certain point and bank some of his money. Right now, and he had like a little cheat sheet on this, so if anybody's interested in looking at this is a Briguy's Tools of the Trade exclusive for you, as I'm just simply repeating what somebody said. And just remember, this is for educational purposes only. I'm not giving trading advice, nor am I authorized to. But this would be, at this point, for gold, looking at the October futures contract. The GC, that would be, I forget what the October one is. Is that J? No, it is JKML. I went and looked it up, and then I forgot to write it down. So let me see real quick. Is it... oh, you know what? It gives me the numbers here. You're a futures guy. Do you know what the contract letter is for October? Let's see. It's not P. QRS. Is it T? U. U. Maybe it's U. September is U, so V. There it is, V. Okay, so here's gold futures. And in my other screen, if I looked at GCV3, and this is the problem I had on my cell phone, is that I don't have those options populated. So apparently, I don't know if there's an issue with my platform or if that's an issue with CBOE, that they don't have these contracts out yet, because he said he was looking at them. So, I mean, that was one of the things he was selling, was his own software to be able to have access to these other contracts. But anyway, let me just finish the story. So the October 1650 1700 call spread is currently trading at $1,000. So if you can confirm that on your own platform, that would be great. But that's the idea. And he mentions when you do this kind of activity, you can set a stop loss for $500. So really, you're risking $500 to make $5,000 in that standpoint. So it was enough to get me interested to look into it further, because I am an options trader. I'm a part-time futures trader, and I think there's enough traders in the room that could be intrigued by something like that if we were to put together a show on that. What do you think, Bocadude?
Hey, so Bry, which contract are you looking at? Was it gold?
Yes, gold contract, the
August?
V3,
I'm sorry. Repeat.
October, so it's V, Victor.
Uh-huh.
And in my TOS platform, it's not coming up. So
Okay, so hold on a second. Let me see if I can get it up here. Hold on, it takes time to go through all this crap.
you actually have a sounds like a clock over there.
Yeah. Hold on a second here. So you're looking at the physical symbol is V. V what?
It would be GC V3.
GCV3. Okay, that's what I need to know. GCV3. Okay, so give me a second here.
Okay. So you do that, and I'm going to see if I can find a website that gives us the options as well. I have...
And then you're on the August, right?
No, October.
October. Okay, there it is. Let's go here. Let's take a look here. CV3. And so what do you want me to tell you?
The spread for the 1650, 1700 call spread, what is that showing it's being traded at?
So give me 1 minute here. Just got to remember. Let's see here. Spread. Ba, 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 ba. V3. GV3. It is the G3, excuse me, GV3.
No, GC, which is gold, contracts, GC. And then it would be V for the month,
Uh-huh.
and 3 for the year.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Because obviously this is something I do not trade. So let's go GC. Okay. V. Oh, there it is. Gold, October 13. Okay, so let me go over here. So give me a minute.
Uh-huh.
I got to pull up my spread stuff.
Sure.
And then so you want to look at it, the October versus what?
Well, this would be the October contract, and then the options on the October contract.
And the option?
We're looking at the price for the 1650 and the 1700.
And the 1700. Okay.
And if you can do the math and give us the difference between them, that would be fine.
Do, 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 do. And of course, I'm doing this after drinking wine.
You should be doing it after drinking wine. Now, I found on the CME Group's website, if I'm finding all this properly here, I believe I found the listing for the options. Now, the underline keeps changing on me. I want the October options, and there's charts and V for volatility. What is this? Oh, I'm getting a cute little... I'll show you guys what I'm looking at here. some kind of charts popping up. And it's given me, looks like the gold trading range here. Interesting. So I'll show you, let me minimize this and I'll show you what I'm looking at here.
Futures contract.
So here's gold. And you can see on the left side is calls, the right side is puts.
Spreads.
So I can, well, if I move that up, it just keeps reshaping the screen here on me. So we're on the underlying is the October contract. The expiration on the contract is also October. And when I scroll down on the 1650 contract, I'm seeing a price of $63.90. On the 1700 contract, I'm seeing a price of $46.60. The difference of which is $17.30. So that call spread would cost you $1,730 at this point. Now, if you have the right platform, it should give you the bid and the ask as well, and give you the mid-range. So you don't have to pay the full nut, the full $17.30 on the spread. Bocadude, I don't know how much of option spreads you're familiar with, but
hey, so what is the on the option?
Yes.
What is the option?
The strike.
Symbol?
Oh, the option symbol. I don't have the option symbol
Okay.
per se. You need to have the exact symbol.
Yep.
Yeah. If you could figure out the nomenclature, it's the expiration date would be the third Thursday in October.
Okay, got it. Okay, third Thursday.
Or I take that back. I meant to say the third Friday, but usually the option name is the Saturday. So if you can find the third Saturday in October.
Okay, give me a minute here. Okay, so I'm looking at my spreads right now. Expiration.
So I have the 19th is the third Saturday in October. And sometimes that's in the name of the option.
Yeah, hold on.
10, 19, 13, something like that.
Yeah, going through. Give me a minute. It just takes a little bit of time to navigate through the stuff here, so give me a minute.
In the meantime, we've got Airman posting an article saying that Greece is back in the news. Let's take a look at that article here.
Commodities options.
So you're listening to live examples of Briguy's Tools of the Trade here. Kumar's given an example in the room if you want to take a peek over there. I don't know if the futures are exactly the same, but it could be something like that. Anti-austerity strike to bring Greece to a standstill. Oh, lovely. No more feta cheese for you.
Ba, 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 ba. Let's see here. Z3 to Z4. Trade recap option. Evaluation. Pew, 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 pew.
Shh, don't spook him.
Okay, so let's see here.
You're listening to the mind of Bocadude.
Yeah, right. After having a little bit of wine, along with Briguy, who has not had any wine.
I'm jealous right now. I'm sitting here with a cup of reheated coffee.
Yeah, killing me.
And
I'm actually going to have to pull the help trigger.
All right. Well, let me bail you out a little bit because I was able to find the strikes on the CME Group's website.
Okay.
So just this is just for purposes of demonstration, and you guys certainly, I would expect to do your own homework on this.
Yep.
But if you scroll down through all these options here, and here's the 1650, I'll highlight that, and the offer price on here is $63.90. The 1700 contract, the offer price is $46.60. So you're talking about $1,730. Now that breaks the rules that he was talking about. But just for purposes of the illustration, and again, my software, I don't have access to that contract, so it's worth investigating further. But if you had a specialist, and maybe I can make an arrangement with this guy, we can talk about him coming on. If you have the specialist software to have access to those contracts, then you can see what the deltas are. And like I said, you want to have an over 30 delta and a 3-to-1 risk reward on the price. So in this case, you'd be risking 1,700 to make 5,000. That's not exactly 3-to-1. But if you consider that you're also doing, you would do a stop at half the price, then maybe it would be considered 3-to-1. But anyway, there's your example. It's a larger time horizon than we might be used to. It's similar to a leap in that sense.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey, Briguy.
yeah,
Hey, Briguy. On
yeah.
that example, can you go up to the column headers on that example you're going through?
That website?
Yep.
Yep, I'll come. I just minimized it, so here it is.
I just want to look at the column headers.
Yep. Yeah, just had prior settle for those values.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Start price.
I noticed they had no volume, so no trading going on. And there are other things here, time and sales. Let me click on that and see if we actually had any trading going on. And in this case, it was just the contract itself, it looks like, traded for 16,389. I don't know. I noticed that too with the gold. It trades in these 5 digits, which I don't know if that's 16,380 and 90 cents or how that works.
Yeah, and so no. By looking at that, I know where I need to hone into with my platform.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'll be able to find that information for you.
Great.
But probably not tonight, since I've had a little too much wine.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We do not recommend trading with imbibements. And if anybody was able to tune into the trading show, I don't know, when it was broadcast from the O'Flaherty's bar,
Yeah,
you might understand why we don't trade with imbibements.
But what I can offer you, Briguy, is what I will do is I'll take the information that I've taken down, and then I will provide you with an analysis that you are looking for on this. How's that?
That sounds awesome. I would appreciate that, and we can follow up with that on another show. I'll give you my email address. It is briguy@daytradingradio.com. So if you're familiar with that domain name, you might be able to, even in your stupor.
My stupor.
Well, you're not quite half a stupor, maybe. You'd be able to figure that out.
Sounds good. Okay, so I will do that for you, Bryce. So you can look for that in your email compartment tomorrow before lunchtime, East Coast Standard Time.
Wow, I'm getting very specific schedule here, and I appreciate that very much, Bocadude.
Sounds good.
So,
okay, thank you, Bry. I mean, for joining you on the show with, of course, the whole crew of all of the audience, making me come on.
Well, we appreciate you taking them up on the offer
Okay.
and going through the extra steps you had to do in order to get on. And we look forward to seeing you in the room and chatting you up in the room as well.
Okay, Bri. Thank you very much. You
All
have a
right.
great night.
Thank you too. Good night.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So that was Bocadude, a very nice fella, and we appreciate him calling into the show and spending a little time with us and sharing with us a little bit of insight into his trading style and his routine. And it's always nice, I find, to hear not just what people are trading, but how people are trading, and get a perspective on maybe some things that you can change in your routine to be a better trader, either more efficient or smarter and refined, and be able to benefit yourself and maybe in a way benefit others. So we thank you for the call, Bocadude, and any of the traders out there who would like to call into the shows. We have plenty of time, plenty of opportunities for that, and I encourage you to feel comfortable enough to do that, to call in and whether it's tonight or another show, or even when we do the after-hour shows, if you'd like to call in, that'd be great. What I'd really feel bad right now is if the fellow who was teaching this point is actually listening in now, and I don't want him to feel like I was ripping off his material, but I am very interested in getting him on a future show where we can talk about it. So I got some work to do to set that up. So you know what? We're coming up on the 10 o'clock hour, and although I do have a few other points that I would like to share with you guys from the trading show, I think we're going to have to save it for another time and share it with you then. Okay? So tune in next time here on Briguy's Tools of the Trade, when we will be talking about other interesting nuggets of information from the trade show, from the TradersExpo. And I'm also working on some other shows. For example, Speed Trader Craig. We're going to have him on again and talk a little bit more about Speed Trader. Working on the fellows from Shore Trader to have them on and talk about their platform. We are continuing with our shows on option strategies and various ways, and you kind of heard about one of the strategies I'd like to talk about, which is the futures options trading strategy. I find that to be interesting. The profit potential there seems really exciting to me for a long-term strategy. And we also have the fellows at Stage 5. Now that with the new branding, that would be interesting to have them on again and talk a little further about their platform. And also I saw someone posted about their mobile platform, so I look forward to that as well. So thanks for tuning in, guys. What I'm going to do is put on some music for you and take a little break, but I do have some work to do later on, and I'll need to take over my computer again, and I'll just be putting Johnny's charts back up. Unfortunately, you may not hear any music right away, but we'll see if we can get him to put some music on later on for you guys. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to end the broadcast. I'll come right back and put those tunes on for you. You're listening to Briguy's Tools of the Trade here on DayTradingRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We had a great time, and we'll see you next week. Good night.